producing something amazing. But if it's not producing anything, then you've got to wonder what's actually going on. Is this just a story you came up with to make yourself more interesting, or what? And that's what all of this comes down to, is the major question has to be, like, if you're doing this ritual, if you're doing the invocation of the Bornless One, what are you using it for? Like, what is it to do? It isn't really a thing. It can be a thing in and of itself, but essentially, if you're just doing it to do the ritual, you have just asserted your spiritual authority over all the phenomenal existing universe. And then you just, pack it in and go home? Like theoretically, I would assume that you would be doing something with that authority and with that power.
With that, on that note, you mentioned before that it's important to be doing it on a regular basis, but in this case, it's sort of obviously the emphasis is on, well, we need a goal, we need some purpose behind it. So how would you consolidate that, or how would you recommend consolidate?
Well, I think if you're doing it on a regular basis, it should be part of some kind of larger structure of a ritual. I mean, one possible goal can just be to get it down so you know it. I mean, and there is sort of a tendency to want to be able to do a ritual like perfectly the first time you pick it up because it's such a big deal to do it and blah blah blah. And it's like, well, no one does that. I mean, that's like expecting to be able to pick up a guitar and play Freebird just like that. And if I mess up a note, then I don't want to play guitar anymore. It's like, no one does that. You got to practice something for a long time. So yeah, I mean that's one of the things. To get closer to one's holy guardian angel is certainly a worthy goal. I would say I had been doing this ritual probably for about 4 years before I felt like I actually got it right. That I was capable of doing it without a break in concentration at any time. Totally focused, totally inflamed in it. And even now, it's like there are times I get it right, there are times I don't. I get distracted now and then, whatever. It's like, there's no quick fix to this, really. Like it's got to be regular and repetitive to a certain degree.
I think that's comparable to musicianship as well, because it's like you don't get the song perfected and then 3 years later expect to be able to perform it perfectly again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the big problem with when people get a success and they put it down or whatever.
So would you recommend doing this every day for a month, for 6 months?
Well, definitely when I first started, I did it every day for a month and saw what happened. And it's important to keep the journal and record any phenomena that might accompany it or whatever. But I mean, realistically, for anyone who hasn't had knowledge and conversation with the Holy Guardian Angel, well, that should be the fundamental goal that everyone has when they're doing ceremonial magic. Simply because, before you have that, there's a reason that the Outer College of the AA isn't really invested too much in creating new things and stuff like that. So you learn this exercise, you learn that exercise, you learn how to do talismans, you learn how to scry, you learn divination over here, and when you get over here, you get more into yoga and so on and so forth, because that's all a preparation for knowledge and conversation with the Holy Guardian Angel. And until you have that, what's the metaphor Crowley uses? He's like, if you're not on the right path, then you don't know what the direction that you're going is. So if you charge off and start trying to do stuff on a magical level, then you could just be taking many steps in the wrong direction without the guidance of your angel. And that's very easy to do, and especially because it's very hard for us to know when we're being influenced by external forces and when we're actually following our true will.
So, what if we awaken Kundalini unwittingly kind of thing? Would that give us greater contact to the Holy Guardian Angel?
Well, Liber 65, Crowley's book about the Holy Guardian Angel, begins with an invocation of Kundalini. That's the first passage. So yeah, I would say that's relevant. And that actually comes up quite a bit in his rubric for the Bornless ritual. I mean, it's part of the reason that I use it as a precursor to the Bornless ritual. The heart girt with serpent is kind of how this ritual concludes. And there's a reason that it's written out that way. And there's a reason that this image comes up constantly in Crowley's work. And that's the first words of Liber 65 are, I am the heart, the snake is entwined, which is actually the end of the Bornless ritual. So yeah, there's a lot of harmony there. Yes?
So is the Holy Guardian Angel a similar concept to the fetch in traditional witchcraft? Do you know what? Is it?
The origin of the Holy Guardian Angel concept comes from a book called The Sacred Magic of Abramelin, which essentially comes from a Hebrew tradition where it was, you could only teach the Kabbalah to the firstborn son, and this guy was an older rabbi who was also into ceremonial magic. He wanted his second son to have an access to that same knowledge. So he wrote the book as a way of, this is how you can get sort of the same result without actually teaching you Kabbalah, because it's against the rules, basically. And Crowley kind of took that book and expanded it, and then he added the Invocation of the Bornless One as sort of, this is how I did this, basically. But the idea is that the Holy Guardian Angel is a separate entity that's objective, and yet somehow has some kind of essential connection to us as an individual person who's capable of telling us, like, this is where you're supposed to be going, this is what you're supposed to be doing, and so
So
on.
do we each have our own holy guardian angel, or is it?
That's the idea, yes.
Okay.
For every individual, there's supposed to be a unique and separate. And that's where it gets confused. Sorry, just to finish this thought. There's times that Crowley will refer to it. He uses a Greek term that means higher self, which I don't know how to pronounce. I'm not going to try. And I don't want to embarrass myself. So that gets conflated a lot with people thinking, oh, okay, it's really just my higher self. It's really me, but just on a different level. And there's a point where that gets confused. So in Magic Without Tears, he's really specific about, no, it's a separate, objective, completely different entity. And that's the only way that it can produce real struggle, because of what we're struggling against when we do this ritual, at the height of this ritual, is really just part of us. Then it's not a real struggle. It's sort of a self-understanding or self-awareness or self-becoming, whatever you want to call it.
Is the Holy Guardian Angel specifically part of Thelema, or does it exist sort of in other traditions?
No, it's pre-existing to Thelema. However, Thelema was created by Crowley's Guardian Angel. I mean, he had his Holy Guardian Angel experiences when he got the Book of the Law, and they announced, okay, this is the new Aeon. It's now the Aeon of Horus, and blah, blah, blah. So that's why we use Crowley's HGA in rituals in Thelema, as well as our own, because he's supposed to be like the minister who brings in the new Aeon. So yeah, it's all connected in that sense. But yeah, like that form of magic pre-exists Thelema, pre-exists the Golden Dawn. They just used that a lot, and it was heavily used in the structuring of the formula of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn when they were putting that together. So
in one book on angels I was reading, the writer said that we all have like several angels, not just like one holy guardian angel, but we've got like several.
We're going to get a million different opinions. And the question is, like, are these people producing, Crowley says what he says, people are going to argue with it, they're going to say different things. Did they produce something comparable to what Crowley produced? No, they didn't. So, and that to me is the justification. Success is your proof, it says in the Book of the Law, and realistically speaking, like I said, John Dee is the only person you could argue had comparable success.
With me and my experiences, I've had contact with two spirits who have, I think both said they were angels. But I haven't been bothering with that kind of work lately.
Well, it's a question of what that term means, really. Like, there's one point that Crowley says Holy Guardian Angel is a term that he likes and adopted for the work he's trying to do, simply because in itself it's kind of ridiculous. Like, he's like, this should prevent people from going too far with this, because I put this ridiculous name on this thing. If it was too much of a clinical term or a specific term, then people would take things and run with it. That's part of the reason, because there's an argument, there's certain movements in occultism to revise the terminology, so we're not talking about angels and spirits and demons anymore. We have different words for it, like inorganic beings is the perfect example, like that sort of removes all the baggage that comes with those words. But then there's the question of, what are we doing this for? Who benefits really from removing that baggage?
Not to mention, it's like you would just create new baggage.
Yeah.
Essentially, because then you're limiting it to a specific definition instead of some vague, a symbol.
Absolutely. There's that.
So it's not considered the higher self?
No. It's. I mean, he uses that term a lot, but later on, that's when he's writing Magic Without Tears, just to straighten that issue out, because it's one of the last books that he wrote. He's like, look, I'm actually talking about a different, distinct individual, not just part of you.
So,
if it was part of us, why would we need ceremonial magic to reach it, right? Like, we could reach it through all kinds of other means. We could just reflect, or we could sit and philosophize. Yeah. So if magic is necessary, it's necessary because we're going for something beyond what we, without it, are capable of. I always find that, this is like one of the troubling things